A new bombshell just dropped surrounding the future of Lamar Jackson. And honestly, for the first time in a long time, this situation is starting to feel legitimately dangerous for the Ravens. Because 3 possible destinations for Lamar have just been revealed, and some of them make way too much sense. What makes this even crazier is that this no longer feels like some random off-season rumor people will forget about in 2 days. Lamar's contract situation is heating up again. Teams around the NFL are quietly paying attention. And there's one franchise on this list that could seriously make Baltimore fans nervous once you see the full picture: Ravens fans. I'm going to be honest with you. This situation is starting to bother me for real, because this doesn't feel like a normal contract negotiation dragging on anymore. It's starting to feel like the kind of issue that quietly grows into a massive problem behind the scenes. And anytime Lamar Jackson is involved, every little detail instantly becomes huge news across the NFL. To put this into simple terms, the Ravens reworked Lamar's deal, and now his 2027 cap hit has reportedly jumped to around $70 million. That number is insane. And in my opinion, when a franchise starts making financial moves like that without locking up their superstar quarterback long-term, tension is naturally going to build, especially because Lamar fully understands how valuable he is to this organization. The report itself makes the situation sound even heavier when it says Baltimore may eventually have only 2 real choices: cave into Lamar Jackson's financial demands or trade him before he walks away as a free agent. That's a massive statement. We're not talking about just another player here. We're talking about the face of the franchise, the guy who completely changed the Ravens' offense the second he became the starter. And honestly, the thing that stands out to me the most is that these trade rumors are starting to gain real momentum again. When Lamar's name starts floating around in possible trade conversations, it usually means there's enough smoke for the entire NFL to start paying attention. And I honestly don't think enough people in Baltimore realize how risky this situation could become if the relationship between both sides keeps getting colder over time. And this is where things start getting even more uncomfortable for Baltimore, because the Atlanta Falcons are showing up once again as a possible landing spot for Lamar Jackson. And honestly, this feels way more dangerous than it did a few years ago. The article even reminds people that Atlanta was heavily connected to Lamar in the past, but back then the Falcons quickly tried to distance themselves from the rumors. This time feels completely different. Right now, Atlanta still has major questions at quarterback. The report mentions Michael Penix Jr. still being an unknown, while also bringing up Tua Tagovailoa as another possible option for the franchise. In other words, the Falcons still haven't found a quarterback they fully trust. And once a team reaches that point, someone like Lamar instantly becomes a dream target. The biggest detail here is that Atlanta could actually offer something Baltimore might seriously consider valuable: a quarterback capable of stepping in immediately while the Ravens try to reset the roster. That changes everything in a possible trade scenario, because losing Lamar would already be devastating. But losing Lamar without getting any functional answer at quarterback back would be an absolute disaster. So once scenarios like this start becoming realistic, the conversation suddenly doesn't sound impossible anymore. And I'm telling you right now, that's exactly what worries me about this entire situation. Because the more you really break down these possible fits, the more you realize there are teams desperate enough to do something crazy for Lamar Jackson. And Atlanta feels like one of those teams. Huge market, franchise trying to become relevant again, and an MVP quarterback potentially available. The NFL knows that combination can create enormous pressure behind the scenes very quickly. Now pay attention to this one, because it might sound weird at first, but it actually makes way more sense than people think. The Arizona Cardinals showed up in this report as another possible destination for Lamar, and the reason is pretty simple. Arizona looks ready to speed everything up immediately. This franchise seems tired of slow rebuilding and appears ready to make a huge move to completely change its image around the league. The article mentions Mike LaFleur taking over as head coach and the team drafting Jeremiah Love extremely high, so the Cardinals are clearly trying to build a new offensive identity fast. And that's where Lamar Jackson becomes the kind of player capable of changing everything overnight. Because we're not just talking about on-field talent here. Lamar changes ratings, expectations, media pressure, and even the way players around the league view your franchise. Alicia D'Artola said something really powerful in the article. The biggest splash they could possibly make is to bring in Jackson as a statement of intent. And honestly, I completely agree with that. Bringing in Lamar would basically tell the rest of the NFL that Arizona is done waiting around. It would be aggressive, expensive, risky, but it would also instantly become one of the biggest stories in football. And I think this is where things start becoming truly serious for Ravens fans. Because once franchises enter panic mode trying to become contenders fast, they start making offers they normally never would. And quarterbacks like Lamar almost never become available. So even if Arizona still has holes on the roster, all it takes is one front office convincing itself Lamar can fix half the problem alone for this thing to spiral out of control very quickly behind the scenes. Honestly, out of every team mentioned in this report, the Minnesota Vikings might be the scariest fit from a pure football standpoint. Because when you look at Minnesota's offense, it's incredibly easy to picture Lamar Jackson absolutely exploding in that system. And the article basically describes it as a perfect situation for him. Alicia D'Artola even wrote, "If I'm Jackson, I'm looking at the Vikings and salivating." Then she brought up Kevin O'Connell as a QB whisperer, along with a receiving group led by Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Now seriously think about that for a second. Lamar in a creative offensive system, surrounded by explosive weapons, with a coach known for maximizing quarterbacks, that would be terrifying for the rest of the league. Another major detail. Here is the situation surrounding J.J. McCarthy. The article strongly hints that Minnesota may not fully believe he's the long-term answer right now. And when competitive teams start losing confidence in their original plan, they begin searching aggressively for alternatives. That's exactly where Lamar suddenly becomes a very real possibility. And I'll be honest with you, this is the kind of scenario that should make Ravens fans uncomfortable. Because it wouldn't just be about losing Lamar. It would be about losing Lamar and then watching him land in the absolute perfect offense to maximize everything he does best. And honestly, I think the NFL knows that if something like this actually happened, the Vikings could instantly become one of the most explosive offenses in football. If you're enjoying this breakdown, smash that like button to help the purple flock grow. But the heaviest part of this entire report is probably the ending. Because it raises a very dangerous possibility. The idea that the Ravens may have lost leverage in negotiations with Lamar Jackson. And that changes absolutely everything. For a long time, it felt like Baltimore completely controlled Lamar's future. Now, it doesn't feel nearly that simple anymore. Once negotiations reach this level, time starts becoming the enemy. The longer a contract extension drags out, the louder the rumors get, the more teams start monitoring the situation, and the more pressure builds around the organization. And honestly, I think that's exactly the phase the Ravens are entering right now. The article makes it clear this doesn't automatically mean Lamar will be traded. But it also says something extremely important. There will definitely be options. In other words, if Baltimore ever opens that door, there's going to be a line of teams waiting to make offers. And that's what makes this entire situation feel so dangerous. Quarterbacks at Lamar's level simply do not become available very often, and in my opinion, the biggest issue here isn't even the money anymore. The biggest issue is the relationship between both sides slowly starting to wear down while the rest of the NFL watches from a distance waiting for an opportunity. Because once a player as important as Lamar starts feeling uncertainty about his future with the franchise, everything becomes unpredictable. And honestly, I truly believe the next few months could end up defining the future of the Ravens for years to come. And honestly, I really believe the next few months could become some of the most important of the entire Lamar Jackson era in Baltimore. Because while the Ravens try to figure out this contract situation, the rest of the NFL feels like it's just sitting back waiting for an opening. And the louder these rumors get, the harder it becomes to ignore the growing pressure behind the scenes. At the same time, it's impossible to forget what Lamar means to this franchise. We're talking about the player who completely changed the level of this team the moment he took over the offense. That's why this entire situation hits Ravens fans so hard. Nobody wants to imagine Baltimore entering a season surrounded by uncertainty about the future of the most important player on the roster. And now I want to hear from you. Which one of these destinations worries you the most? Do you think the Ravens will eventually work this out with Lamar Jackson, or do you believe this situation could become even more dangerous moving forward? Let me know in the comments because I genuinely want to hear what you think about all of this. And if you're a true Ravens fan and love keeping up with everything happening around the team, don't leave this video without sharing it with a friend who's just as passionate. They're definitely going to enjoy this. See those videos on your screen right now? I picked the first one especially for you, and the other is recommended by YouTube. Go check them out and I'll see you in the next video.